We live in the day of the mega church and the celebrity pastor and the $1 million preachers. And if you're involved in that and that's your thing, that's none of my business. I'm not judging you. But I do want to point out that in the New Testament, their goal was not to build mega churches, and it was not to exalt man. It was to meet spiritual needs. What's interesting when I say that a church can begin in somebody's home, someone objects to that and says, "Well, you're turning people against religion, as though I'm turning people against Christ by telling them that they can have church in their home." Whatever church you go to now, the chances are really good that it started probably in somebody's home. I remember years ago one of the preachers that are mega church preachers on television. It was Rod Parsley. I saw him say one time. And I don't know Rod. I'm not criticizing Rod personally. I'm just saying I heard him say that he started the church where he is the pastor with, I think he said, 10, 15 people in his backyard. Now, was that wrong of him to do that? Was it wrong of him to begin a church in his backyard? What if they had continued to meet in his backyard? What if they, instead of building a mega church, once they got too big for his backyard, they went to another location and started another house church? And then when that one got too big, they went and started another house church and just had a system of house churches. Would that have been wrong? If it wasn't wrong to do it at first, it wouldn't have been wrong to keep doing it. Now, here's what people will need to remember about the New Testament. Sometimes you have to go back and read the New Testament with fresh eyes and say, I want to know what the Bible actually teaches rather than what I've been told that it teaches. Do you know how many times the Bible deals with and talks about house churches? Philemon verse 2 talks about a church that met in somebody's house. Romans 16, go through there and read Paul's closing. It's a section of Romans we normally ignore. But notice how many times he says to greet certain believers and the church in their house. You remember when the church started in Acts chapter 2 and verse 41 says that 3,000 people were obedient to the gospel. And verse 42 says they, the ones who were saved, continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine and fellowship, in the breaking of bread and in prayers. And then later on it says where they did that. It says that they broke bread from house to house. So there was a lot of meeting in homes in the New Testament before human denominations were formed. If we were going to be legalistic, if you were going to say that the New Testament has to be followed in a legalistic fashion, I mean, we have to do it exactly the way they did it. There is no authority to take money and build a church building. You're doing something that is completely foreign to the New Testament. To take money given to God and then build elaborate church structures for Christians to meet and have staff and on gymnasiums and all these things. I'm not saying those things are wrong because I don't believe the New Testament can be interpreted legalistically. The New Testament is not the Old Testament with different rules. It's a completely different system. So while I personally disagree with that approach, I'm not judging anyone involved in it. But I am saying, without a doubt, you can bypass all of that. And you can have a very simple relationship with God, and you can have your own church in your home. And as you grow or as you get excited about it, you'll pray about and find various ways to adjust to the challenges that you'll face. All church, big churches, little churches, house churches. You're always going to have challenges that present themselves. But when that happens, what do? You just think about it and pray about it and decide on your next step. Paul told Titus in Titus 1 and verse 5, I left you in Crete that you should set in order the things that are lacking and appoint elders in every city, as I've commanded you. Now, it has been argued that if you go with the house church arrangement, then some even use the word hierarchy, the hierarchy of the church, or some might use the authority pattern of the church would be undermined. It would not be undermined at all. Because the way that the churches were arranged in the first century was very, very simple. It was not based on career professionals or salaried preachers or bishops that oversee a bunch of churches. It was about wise, godly, older men. That's why they were called elders, because they were older. And the reason they were called pastors is because they were shepherds. The word pastor is the same as the word shepherd. And so when Paul told Titus to appoint elders in every city, what you had was small groups meeting in various places and elders who were there for those Christians in those churches. Older men who had experience and wisdom and could oversee, not boss around or be the boss of or dominate people's faith, but they could oversee and shepherd those flocks, helping them stay focused on and faithful to the Lord. The reason he was so careful in 1 Timothy 3 and also in Titus chapter 1 about the kind of men that are to serve as pastors and shepherds is because anytime a person has any sort of position, then they start thinking in terms of authority, and they start thinking in terms of their own importance, and they forget that Jesus said that the way to be great in his kingdom is to serve, and the Gentiles lord it over one another, but it shall not be so among you. Talking to his followers, he said, whoever's going to be great among you must be your servant. So if a person is an elder or a pastor, they have signed up to be somebody's servant, not to be in charge or not to be the boss, but to be the servants of the flock. And you are giving yourself and your time to helping people in their walk with Jesus. It has nothing to do with getting rich. It has nothing to do with dominating people's faith, telling people what they have to believe about everything. It has everything to do with guiding people in their personal relationship with Christ. So that hierarchy structure that you see in man-made denominations doesn't exist in the New Testament. It's a very simple approach in the New Testament based on love and encouragement and mutual edification and everybody learning to minister to one another. And then having seasoned older Christians there to help people in their walk, to help them in the areas where they need help. It really is as simple as that. No matter what man tries to say or what man sets up, God's way is always the best way, and it's usually the simplest way to understand. Anyway, thank you for your time, and just take your Bible and consider these things, and look up how many times, for example, the Bible talks about churches that met in homes. Why isn't that talked about more today? It should be, because that's certainly a valid way to do it, and may very well be the best way to do it. Have a good day. Thank you for listening, and hope to see you again.